Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where movement, mindset, and mastery meet. Join us as we explore the art of living fully with expert guests and real-life stories to inspire your journey. And welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast with your host, Brad Marshall. And today, excited to be joined by Adam La Reau. He's one of the founders and managers of O2X Human Performance, which has been delivering human performance training for over a decade now. And before that, he was involved with the Navy SEALs. So I'm excited to dive into his story, learn a little bit more about what got him excited and allowed him to found O2X. So Adam, thanks for spending some time on the podcast today.
Yeah, Brad, that's good to see you. Wish it was in person, but it's good to.
I know last time sharing a slice of pizza up in Massachusetts was not a bad way to spend some time together. So as someone who's,
Yeah.
still some of the best pizza I've had, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
I gotta take you to my spots in Jersey.
Oh, there we go.
You know that I'm further away now, but
Yeah, I know. You know all the good spots up there in the Northeast where O2X is headquartered at. And so I always think it's fascinating to hear a little bit about people's story and what gets them interested into the field of work or what they end up diving into. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to find your way into the human performance world and founding O2X.
yeah. Well, I think I kind of alluded a little bit. I'm from New Jersey originally. That's where I was born and raised. Something at a pretty young age. I was always into sports. Not going to go back too far. I'm not taking you back to grade school here, but very into athletics, very into goal setting. I was competitive, interesting. And I was competitive powerlifter, kind of caught that pretty early. And I did that for a long time with like sponsorships and things like that. And I got really into, that fascination of human performance. And even at a young age, like competing in like at 15 in powerlifting competitions, then 16, 17, and then in the beginning of college, obviously I was fascinated with, pushing myself and kind of, kind of seeing what you can do at your body weight at your age and experimenting with training programs and, just kind of like pushing yourselves. Along the way there, I definitely came across, the military and a love for the military and like serving your country. Definitely nothing that came up like, pushed it to me as a younger, kid. My dad got drafted, but it's not something that he was necessarily like, hey, pushed to go active duty or go into the military. If anything, it was probably quite the opposite. I had aspirations to go to college and, maybe play sports, kind of see how that went. Applied to the military schools, came across the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, and I ended up getting in there. Not a linear path for sure. I think my heart was set on the U.S. Naval Academy. That's kind of where I always really wanted to go. I wanted to go into the SEAL teams and I wanted to be a SEAL officer. I knew that, where to kind of get the commission. Most of those billets are coming from Naval Academy. At the time, there wasn't things like SOAS and like officer selection in that way. It was kind of divided between Naval Academy, ROTC, and OCS, like three buckets, which is it's a lot different now. Merchant Marine Academy was definitely an unconventional route, but it just provided me a pathway to get a commission. Very interesting, interesting school and background. If I had a chance to do it again, I would do it all over again. Same pathway. You had the ability to see what that's like. O2X is doing some leadership leadership and performance work with the midshipmen from, plebes all the way up to first classmen to kind of prepare them for those like leadership roles and jobs, but starting with like ground base of like self. And so I guess I put myself a lot in their shoes. Like that was a continuation from high school. I went to college. I played rugby and baseball there. I was training for the SEALs for like 4 years, of which 3 of the years, you only spend 3 years there. You're literally out at sea for a year, 4 months, like your sophomore and 8 months, your junior year. Put my application in, 9/11 happened. Luckily enough, I got picked up and it was definitely a dream come true to just get picked up. It was not even, I had a massive respect for the community and a massive respect for, what was ahead of me. I was certainly incredibly excited about the challenge. Like, once again, you go back to like the premise of my, big part of my life was, very competitive in nature. I definitely wanted to see what I was capable of. I wanted to serve my country, and all of these values aligned. It was also like big on tradition. I absolutely love, the facets of sports and rugby and locker room and things like that, because I just, I appreciated that. That was like culture to me, and tradition and legacy and all those facets are like really fascinating, and it drew me in. So the history of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and commissioning kids, and I'd say kids because they were in like 18 months during World War II to like command vessels and go out to sea to be able to provide supplies is like nothing like I've ever heard of before. And then they come back after the war and then come finish their school and graduate and then go off in their life after they've already done those things. So just really just fascinating. But luckily, I say got picked up and then went to SEAL training and then came to the East Coast, and I spent my time on the East Coast based SEAL teams. And I think that human performance thread, we didn't call it that back then. I feel it was just, it was just training, but obviously fitness tied into it, like mental preparation tied into it. Um, there certainly was a development on like education on nutrition. Nutrition was always really big for me, probably because it was like weight control and things like that for comp. It's almost like wrestling, like powerlifting was like wrestling. You know your weights, you want to get as strong as you possibly can. And then you're obviously maintaining that, those weights. So like nutrition was so, so important. And I feel like all those facets putting together was something that I was really passionate about. I would probably say that I trained a little bit. I got away with a lot back then, and I think we all do, is because we're so young. And it was like just constant overtraining. I think I ran in boots and pants for over a year. Like I don't think it felt uncomfortable when I put running sneakers on. Like when I put running sneakers on, I was like, I'd rather put boots on and run. Like that's how comfortable I felt with running in boots and pants because I just wanted to simulate that environment. So neck up wise, I mean, I felt like that was like put me in the right mindset. Like I put those boots on. It wasn't putting boots on and training for the first time. Running in soft sand certainly gets way more tough than where you trained, but that helped really prepare me for those types of environments. And then obviously there's a lot more we could talk about that, but you kind of learn a lot of it's not if something is going to happen, it's when, it's the durability of your body and your mind, and the stress and strain of all that through the SEAL teams really was a big inspiration of O2X. You get out of the military, you take the uniform off and you want to continue to serve. Like, what's your purpose? Yeah, I was lucky to start a business with close friends and have a mission that I'm still tied to.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to hear that arc of getting into a sport and just learning some of the skills and traits and then realizing what some of your values are, which leads to college and the opportunity to apply some of those, and then eventually working your way to the Navy SEALs. What was it in those early years about powerlifting that really drew you in? Because I think it's a sport that you don't hear a lot of people getting into, especially, at a younger age, but there's a lot of things you can learn from having the consistency and just simplicity of the movement. So what were some of the things that drew you into that particular sport early on in life there?
Yeah. So being a gym rat in high school was definitely a big part of it. And then seeing that. So the gym that I went to was in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And I don't think I've ever even talked about it before, but it was like, it's called Strong and Shapely Gym in East Rutherford. And it was it was a big lifting gym. But it was more bodybuilding than anything else. So like the guy was fairly popular. It was one of those things like we would drive. There was on the local. We clearly had like the local high school dungeons or your friend's house, but as soon as someone got their license, like we found ways to like get in there and pay for memberships, or our family supported this. Figured it was better than like doing a million other things that we could be doing at that point. And I went with a lot of my friends who played football and they were trained really hard, and like powerlifting was a big like heavy back squats and deadlifts there, fundamental bench pressing, like that was there. And then I saw, just being competitive, I said, you know what, I saw a competition, on the, not there, but I was like maybe like 2 hours away. By the way, most of the powerlifting competition were in Pennsylvania, deep middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, right? This was, I mean, you're talking about 95. And I would get the Powerlifting USA magazines and you like scroll through the back and try to find out like where these things are located, like what's close. And they're like in Nebraska, Iowa, deep Pennsylvania, like they're not, they certainly weren't that many where I was from. So I really appreciate like my mother and father were massive supporters of whatever I wanted to do. Like, so I definitely recall an incredible dedication of, my dad grabbing me at 3 o'clock in the morning and then getting in a car and driving like 5 hours, 5.5 hours to a powerlifting competition in the middle of Pennsylvania. Whether they were like, I pretty much competed it all raw, and I never really did like assisted lifting things. And, it was like, that's kind of how it got started. And I like the first competition I ever went, I didn't know you could like decrease weight. Right. So I started at like my max, I was like, well, wait a minute. I had like no idea. So I obviously failed miserably at that first one and didn't really recognize. I'm like, all right. So my max weight, my PR was, 50 pounds above the winner. So I don't think I need to like, maybe I don't need to put my PR. Maybe I can start like something. Yeah, I get this whole incremental stuff. And then I started doing that, picked up a sponsorship with Lou Ferrigno gyms. He used to have a ton of gyms and then, competed a while and had some national records for, about 10 years and stuff. And it just got into it. But at some point, I got out and when I went to college, like I bumped up a weight class and I also had to be like really good at running. I was more of a sprinter, which kind of correlates with that sport, right? Like I was more of like, it's more of explosive. And I just needed to become like I had to retool my body. I had to certainly like retool what I was going to do, be more of like I would say an endurance athlete, be more efficient at the aerobic side. Certainly, playing rugby and, growing up playing other sports like soccer, like used to running, but like running, I couldn't say running and swimming were like my thing. In particular, swimming was not, I wasn't a proficient swimmer at all. So that's something I really had to work in. I would say that my swimming wanting to be a maritime commando and what my swimming background was at the time and where I had to get was I spent a lot of time in a pool. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Did you have coaching and guidance? I imagine to experience that level of success, there's certainly the genetic piece and having maybe a predisposition to be strong in certain lifts and things like that. Did you have somebody who was kind of guiding and coaching you through that? Because I always find that's interesting in youth sport. There's not a lot of coaching that goes along with like, here's how to lift properly, or here's how to train properly, or here's how to eat a certain way. But sometimes you get lucky and you run into somebody who can help guide you in some of those formative years to figure some of that stuff out.
For sure. The answer is yes. So a friend of mine, well, for one, everybody that was even in seventh and eighth grade, they had like football, like high school prep programs and stuff. So I would always, the interesting part, I would go, but at that age, not a lot of people would go. Right. And so even though I didn't play, I just said, hey, I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in this. Will you take me? And one of the guys was an ex-Army guy. And he was a father of one of the guys who played and he was there all the time. And so we learned a lot from him. He was a power lifter and he grew up powerlifting, big guy. And he taught us a lot. I would say looking back at it once again, I definitely was following like periodization programs back then, but it was very obviously very specific to the powerlifting side. And then it was also like probably overloaded and getting away with a lot back then. Probably not as efficient with my technique, but obviously it was something that really worked on. And then going to having the standard. I don't know if it was really healthy, Brad. You'd be the guru to kind of say like going below depth at like with heavy weight. I know that's like the CrossFit thing and people do that. I'm still at that young of an age going deep and, below parallel and squatting. And I mean, it's good with like heavy loads, like 425 on your back and you weigh 148 pounds, like that's, it kind of, what's that do long term? I don't know. I feel okay now. It helped, but I kind of managed that and like everything else. So I learned along the way. It was a lot of like self-research, a lot of people just like kind of helping each other out, just working out. The nutrition thing I was saying was more of like a self-exploration. It was like me learning and reading off of that and just like eating clean. I had to just pick people's brains, but I felt like most of the people that were at those gyms were super lean because of bodybuilding. Right. And they had like their off-season mass gaining and then like you could see them cut up and I think that was more of a more calorie restrictive mindset. It was like a carb phobia more than anything. Right. So, we've learned a lot all over the time, but I was able to experiment a lot at a young age and really get to learn the sport and feel comfortable competing, and then play other sports. I played baseball. I played baseball in college too, and so it was that was all really fun experiences for me.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to that idea of having a great foundation, like learning some of those core lifts, back squat, bench, deadlift. It sets you up that you can go do a lot of other things. Even if you're not setting records, you can still go have fun in other sports. And then you mentioned the idea of, well, now going to college and other sports, and then even getting into the military, that there's certain physical requirements and things that you're going to be expected to be able to accomplish and do outside of just those three lifts. And so being able to adjust and modify. You mentioned that you loved tradition and what went along with school and then even with Navy. What was it about the tradition that you were excited to dive into a school and then even put yourself in the position to try and go become part of a Navy SEAL team?
Yeah, I mean, for one, the tradition, the history and tradition. I was into history. I was understanding that, lineage and where people came from. I know like the history of the country. The Merchant Marine Academy was interesting because I didn't really know as much about that at first. Like I knew the history of Naval Academy probably more. And then come to understand and appreciate like like the little bit the background and like the the significance that that academy plays to the commerce and to the safety and the transportation within the United States and for during time of war, during time of peace. It's just a fascinating thing, and it was very experiential learning, and that like kind of led it. It was very science heavy. Like you're obviously overloaded with but it's a Bachelor of Science, and they overload you because you have to pack all these credits in 3 years versus 4. So you come out of the gates hot. Like you come, with 24 credits, your first, you're right out of high school, and you're jamming with calc and physics, and you're getting things done. But it's also very experiential, where you're going to school in like boiler suits, like flame retardant suits, and you go in there and you're cranking on engines and you're learning how to weld, and also it's very unique, and like not many people know that you get your commission. So I have friends that are Blue Angels, that EOD, that are helicopter pilots, that are in all branches of the armed services. They went into MARSOC later on in MARSOC, like when it actually became MARSOC, you know, Army. So it's just like, it's kind of like a hidden gem. Like if you don't worry, sure, I knew where I wanted to go, but if for people that didn't, I was like, this is like a secret. This is like a secret out there. It's like a mystery school. Definitely do not have the resources that a lot of other programs and big schools have. But if you want to, most people there play a sport. There's not your 900 mids and 500 there at a time because the rest are out at sea, and everyone plays a sport. So you get people that are like-minded people, and I say that in the best way because everyone's like an athlete. Everyone's like kind of pretty close. Then obviously the SEAL teams, forget it. Like the history from there goes way back. World War II, and like you got the NCDU teams, and people putting like axle grease on them because they didn't have wetsuits back then, and like preparing and blowing the Jap scullies before the invasion of D-Day. I mean, it just really super tough guys and tough training, and in my eyes, there was nothing better, nothing harder, right? And I really appreciate that, to me, that was like testing everything for us, like testing your physical, the emotional side, and then be able to do that job. And then, got, my wish came true. So it was a great experience and very interesting timing.
Yeah, I get the sense that you're someone who loves to charge head on towards challenging situations or moments to see what you're kind of made of, whether it was, the lifting, the Merchant Marine Academy, if it was buds and working through SEAL training. Was that something that you felt like was kind of instinctual, or like you've just always been like that? Or is that something you sort of developed over time? Is this like, let me see what's something that's going to really challenge me and see if I've got what it takes, and I'm going to go for that?
Yeah, no, um, I would think it reflecting back to me as a kid, I do think that was like something that I like being in sports. I was very competitive. Like I was very competitive, and I always wanted to challenge myself. I always really loved training. Like I really did love that part. Like I loved training, not necessarily training. Like I didn't mind practice. Like I kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed. Yeah, I thought I like viewed it as like pure enjoyment. Like I really appreciated everything, and I can remember like just my dad pitching me baseballs and like never wanted something. I don't think they taught, they facilitated, right? And they never put limitations on anything that they never said, oh, you can't do that, or it's going to be really hard to do that. Like there was never a limitation on your mind. If anything, it was like encouragement. It's like, yeah, if you're going to go, yeah, go ahead and do it, like go for it. But and then they were into the things that I was into. And maybe my mom wasn't as into the powerlifting side, right? I do recall her going to a competition and me missing my last lift and blowing every blood vessel out in my face and including my eyes. And she looks at me, she's like, you're going to school like that tomorrow. And I'm like what? Like not knowing, because I didn't look in the mirror yet. And she's like, your face is jacked up, you know? So yeah, supportive to an extent. Yeah.
And I think that speaks to how important it is. One, if you start to stack a few wins early, but then surround yourself with a group of individuals that can help to encourage and keep pushing you forward, it gives you some of that confidence that you can go take on some taller tasks. Now, when it comes to the Navy SEALs and working through buds, I think everyone in the general population has an understanding of that's a really challenging course to go through to pass it to become a Navy SEAL. You most likely knew that going into it. As you were working through that, was there anything that either surprised you or was maybe unexpected? Because I think, when you go into a tough challenge, you kind of have this makeup of what you think it's going to be. And like, I think I've got what it takes and I'm going to, do what I can to navigate this. But there's always going to be something that sort of surprises you or maybe catches you off guard. Was there anything like that for you as you were working through, that process?
Well, interesting one. I want to go back to the parent thing for a second because, now that we're, we train at O2X, I think we've already 40,000 people and tactical groups and professional athletes and different organizations. So it's awesome to kind of see and talk to a lot of high performers. And, it's been awesome. I mean, it's great, but I always ask, like, so I'm curious too, just I'm kind of curious. I'm like, how did you get here? What made you like, was there like, obviously there's some people that are genetic freaks, like absolutely like incredible. You're like, oh, I didn't really try that hard, but I ran for 1,000 yards, and I had X amount of touchdowns or whatever. But most of the time, their parents, people that were really successful, they just loved what I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I'm just saying they just loved what they do. So it didn't feel like work. And when I talk to a lot of parents now, especially these, like, it's just a different demographic. I ask a lot, I'm like, hey, how'd your son get into the NHL? Like what facilitated that? And they're like, well, I just put him in the program, not with the best kids, but like kind of like the best, like good humans that I could find. And so it wasn't necessarily like the Premier League. It was the ones that like the parents cared a lot and the kids were good kids and the parents were good parents. And that made people love the sport. And that made the kid love the sport. And that made the kid like want to do it all the time. It's like having a good teacher and, being excited about something, that you never were excited about. So I think that's like super, super fascinating now that I have, young kids. And I think about that all the time. It's like, it's hard now not to, to keep up with everybody else that's like putting their kids into 75 camps. And my kids are really young. So they do jujitsu and like, that's it. And they just started some other things. But you don't have to necessarily play 12 sports or have to go year round or dedicate yourself at 5 years old to like one thing. And that's all you're going to do. God bless if that happens, that person takes to it. But I think it's like falling in love with a passion and continue to, thrive into that passion and expose them to a ton of other things. Like I love the Gretzky stories where like his favorite sport he ever played was lacrosse. It's like the best time of his year was like lacrosse. And that was because he was doing something different. Yeah, it was complementary sport in a lot of ways, but that makes people maybe love the sport that you're destined to do or love the task that you're destined to do. So it doesn't feel like work. Yeah, I feel like a lot of ways I'm kind of bypassing the buds Navy SEAL question, but a lot of ways if you're loving what you do every day, like we do at O2X, and it definitely is work. It definitely is hard work, but it's just like so fun and rewarding. If we can keep having impact and doing those things, it's just like we'll keep doing it forever.
Yeah, and I think something you mentioned there is just surrounding yourself with the right people, but also being open to what's possible or what could happen. I think so many times when people really invest in like, we're going to go single sport, go really deep in this one thing, do all the camps, all the coaches, whatever it might be, you're kind of putting all those eggs in one basket. And I think it is fascinating because when you get around really high level athletes, you realize they could pretty much have gone pro in a variety of sports. It's like they just ended up falling into that sport, but you put a different implement in their hands, and all of a sudden you're like, how are you so good at that and this and that? It's like there's certain something instinctual there, but there's this well-roundedness as well of like they just, physically can pick up things faster. They put themselves in a great position with, great support teams and things like that. And I think that same could be said for kids of like, you're not really going to know what you're really good at or thrive at unless you try out a variety of things and put yourself in a position where like, we'll see what happens. It might go well, it might not, but I'm just going to put myself out there and try it and see what happens and then see what I enjoy doing and want to stick with versus super committing to just one thing.
100%. Like find people passionate. Obviously, the Masters just ended, right? So like, everybody like Roy McIlroy, everybody's paying attention. It's like his parents are, did everything like in their entire lives to like support him to do it, and like that's like 1 in a million, right? Maybe more, right? So, but it's a cool story, and whether someone like that ever like someone who has that much talent, that which just because you put a lot of time and effort, but kids see that. Like kids see, I think, the parents putting time and effort and energy for them to be able to be successful. And I feel like that's such a lucky thing. And I feel grateful for that. Like I feel grateful that I had parents that were, my mom was a school teacher. My dad was a gym teacher. He was in sales. He sold, all sorts of things. And it just it was like simple living, but it was family was a big thing. Even now, it's like I go back to I was like, hey, anytime when I'm not traveling for O2X, is like I want to be home. Like I want to be home with my for dinner and like see my kids, see my family. Like that's where that's where the secret sauce. That's the secret. That's the magic potion right
Yeah, and I see, all these threads coming together of having parents and learning from them and having experiences in youth sport and then college and then even with the Navy SEALs that sort of builds to this opportunity then to piece it all together and create O2X, which is really centered on this idea that if we can eat in a certain way and we can move and sweat in a certain way, and if we can get our mental game and thrive in a certain way, like we can really improve in any line of work, whether that's military, athletics, corporate, etc. What gave you the like insight or inspiration to pursue that of trying to create and build a company that could help others to thrive?
Yeah. Well, experiences that obviously continue that thread of excitement about, for me, performing and being able to perform my job at something that can necessarily have a significant impact on my decisions can have a significant impact on other people's lives. So being as best I can be physically, mentally, emotionally to be there, like that's huge responsibility. I feel like, if I'm folding an American flag and giving to somebody, like I want to look in the mirror and be able to say like we did everything we can. I did everything I can to be the best I possibly can be. Like that was got me up and motivated. And seeing this journey through that time in the military is like just felt like we could do a lot more. The humans over hardware is an adage that you hear all the time, but it really is. It's like the human side of it. Like we have to take care of the humans. Anyone, if I walk in an organization, clearly I talk to a million different organizations, a million different people. There's 1,000 things they can prioritize. And if they're not prioritizing their people, then that affects readiness, it affects resilience. I don't care what organization, like no high performing, another key characteristics and quality of a high performer or someone who has been in the league for a really long time is resilience. All professional athletes, resilience, Olympic athletes, resilience, special operations, resilience. It is your ability to continue to kind of push through, and you're going to get setbacks, you're going to get injuries, you're going to get issues that are going to come up, and you have to like navigate through that. So anybody that says that that's then you kind of like question is like that's the foundation of everything. It has nothing to do with anything, the equipment, or has a little bit to do with some of the equipment, but you got to take care of them and be able to take care of them and take care of your people. That's the first quality characteristic. That's the first step in leadership. Take care of your people, right? And if you want people to stick around longer and work for you longer, and to be able to provide mission impact, that is a baseline thread that you've got to get right, and that involves human performance. What I think I'm fairly structured and like in my thought process, and I to me teaching human performance is no different than teaching like CQB or jumping or diving or anything like that. You can take the best shooters in the world, stick them in the room, and like it'll be a hot mess for them to clear a house. And just because they have those like skills, it's like they have to have an SOP. They have to have some standards. You have to be able to teach them. You can't just like it's like going to the gym and like I'll just do whatever I feel like doing, and then like I'm going to generate results. Like no, and I think now that like we have such an ability to there's such an ability of getting distracted by a lot of these different there's so much information out there, and then you don't have the time, depending on most of the people, their job, they don't have the time in order to put it all together, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and to get the results that you need. Right. So there's like some people claim you can't be an expert at everything. That's the one thing I took away from the SEAL teams, or one of the few things. I have all these different levels of expertise to be able to pull it together, like find the experts to be experts and then synthesize it, bring it together and have somebody package it well. That's O2X to me. And, doing at scale, like you need software, like digital is a big initiative within O2X, and to be able things for coaches and for athletes and for leadership. The big thing too is for leadership to have some sort of data management system and data software to be able to look at like look at what is happening, look at the readiness and resilience of their unit and like where people are and get ahead of those issues. So these programs are adaptive. I don't love like the staffing model, like without nothing. Like, hey, you go through like, I'll give you Brad Marshall and he's awesome, but like, you'd be like, okay, what if 800 people are at your door? With the day you show up, like how much time do you develop curriculum and implement it to everybody? And to be able to share that and to be able like, oh, I need a program and I just tore my labrum and I'm coming back from that and like get me ready. And then, oh yeah, by the way, what's my mental take? Like, you're like, what? Too much. Like I can't. And you want to win because you're a good guy and you're skilled, but you need a team to do that. And so I feel that's kind of really where I feel like O2X lands. It delivers a platform to organizations, helps fill seams in some, but it delivers a platform that has training and education. It's got the right people that's going to fit with the organization, and it's got the technology that's going to help deliver that at scale.
Yeah, and I think something you said there is that at the heart of it, it is valuing people and understanding that in order for any business, team, organization to thrive, how effective the people are, not only at their job, but with interacting with folks internally and externally is the heart of the matter. And if they're not in a position where they can do that successfully, it doesn't matter what the goals and values and mission are, because the people are what are essentially going to drive it. And the model that you've leveraged with O2X is to go find people who specialize in specific areas, whether it's sleep or nutrition or strength or mindset, recovery, resilience, etc., and try and bring them together, like you said, to synthesize it. Was that always sort of the goal from the outset when you founded and started this thing and you started to figure out, okay, I want to figure out a way to train people and bring this information to them because it's valuable. We want to help people be able to thrive. What's the most effective strategy to do that? Was that sort of the game plan from the inception, or did that kind of evolve over time?
It like whether I say it or not, it's not linear, right? Like, yeah. So it's definitely not a linear path. I mean, in the beginning, it's just entrepreneurship too. I mean, you started something from absolute scratch. So it's like, it really is like file new, figure it out. But the curriculum was definitely important, like how we're going to outroll and how we're going to end. But I feel like we're like implementation specialists. And I feel like we always had a baseline education that we were going to teach. Now it morphed. We like got drawn into tactical is what made us feel really good. It kind of got drawn into that piece. And the methodology and model came, which formulated our book. We're like, hey, we're going to do this. Like we have to let's publish a book. Like, let's talk about the model and like, let's get it down on paper. We always had it down on paper, but like formalizing it and really synthesizing like how we talk about sleep, how we talk about nutrition, how we talk about strength and conditioning, how we pull injury risk reduction, and how do all these pieces fit and how it's coherent and how do we tell a story. So that really helped that a lot. The embedded specialists and the technology and stuff, we've always had some level of it, but it continued to morph. And every day, like we don't sit still with it. And we're always adapting and we're always like, there's R&D happening all the time, like every day. And not to mention our clients are so different that's the exciting part. like everyone has a different job demand, even within the organizations we work with. And so we just, custom, like, can you customize the scale? People say you can't, but O2X found a way to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's so unique is having access to that many resources. Because if you were to go out and try and find them individually yourself, it would take a lot more time, energy, and effort and money. But to synthesize, bring it together, package it in a way that feels like you can get the full range of a variety of skills in a couple days of training that gives you an opportunity then to move forward and have a better sense is always really, really a time saver, but is very effective and efficient. O2X has been around for a little over 10 years now. And so you've probably seen certain trends, things emerge and fade. What have been some things that have either intrigued you or interested you as you've continued to interact with and connect with folks within the military community, the law enforcement community, even, working, like you said, in some of the athletic communities as it relates to how they think about human performance and how they think about training and developing and things like that?
Yeah, we'll hit 12 years in December. Yeah, the evolution, for one, the holistic side of it, and to talk about all these different things, people looked at, we were like crazy. It was like, these are the worst meetings. Like, I mean, one fire department, pretty big fire department, very brash and vocal. They're like, it sounds great. You guys seem like you know what you're doing, but we have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Like, I mean, and so we trust you. We're gonna like let you go. We delivered a lot of impact for them. They're awesome to continue to work with. It's like they didn't get it right. Like and I'm like, well, these are the issues that you're experiencing, right? When you guys got suicides and depression, mental health, you got people going out, you got injuries all the time, you got cardiac disease, you have 18 cardiac events a year. And then like you're not only that, like it's cost you guys a ton of money. The obesity rate here is higher than the average population. Like let's look around, like how are you going to tackle all of these things? And I think that they got, like, everyone always gets the exercise part, let's call it, like, and I never talk about that ever in meetings because they always get it, and then God forbid they ever hear that what your background is, and they think that's all you're going to do, right? So I kind of lean with everything else, and the neck up is just as important, if not more, obviously, right? The ROI comes a lot from the physical side because it's hard to measure resilience. It's hard to say, hey, these are how many people sought mental health, support and counseling. There's how many lives you possibly save. We have a lot of those data. We have those stats too, because people, I mean, it's nice to have that side of it, but it's obviously from the physical side, people got that. So the evolution was people not understanding what the hell we were talking about to really, like, now, like, human performance it's clearly tactical athlete, human performance. Like, people hear it, like, oh yeah, played out. I was like, man, I was like played out before we even started using it, but you guys are depending on what circle you're in. But now you see the evolution and people start calling wellness, and there's different byproducts of it, and you just got to know who you're talking to in the crowd. And I think that that's the biggest evolution. People get it. COVID, 100%. Like, people like, you have a population that has like unhealthy and potentially suppressed immune systems that are out there doing things and in a vulnerable state. And I think that just woke a lot of people up. In some ways, taking care of yourself got amplified quite a bit during that time. Like, okay, whatever you thought about COVID or like the impacts of it, it just was like, we have to take care of ourselves because there's issues here. And I felt like that. And when I say issues, when you're isolated, this doesn't work out that well. When you can't interact with humans, like, take the actual, COVID out of it, but just like isolating yourselves, and fear, uncertainty, isolation, it, that is still impacting people. That's still impacting like certain groups of individuals that have like kind of lived at formidable years during that. So now people get it a little bit more. So I feel like the evolution is a little bit more understanding of why it's important to take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to this idea of how reactive I think we are as a society, where you don't realize you really either need something or it's helpful to invest in something until it's almost too late. Like you mentioned with the fire department, when you start seeing suicide rates, obesity rates, chronic diseases emerge, then it's like, oh, we got to change something, do something. And at that point you can, but it's much better to be proactive. How do we get ahead of the curve and give you the skills and tools that we don't have to worry about taking it down the road and being holistic in that approach. I think you start to see a lot more businesses on the corporate side embracing that of how do we do more for our employees so that they can continue to do great work. You see teams and in the athletic world doing that. It sounds like, and even in my experience with the military, like things are trying to move in that direction of being more proactive. And as you continue to see some of those trends emerge and being in the field for 12 years now, what are the things that still sort of get you excited with O2X and that you continue to look forward to? Because, you know, with any business, there's evolutions to it and there's peaks and lows and all the things in between, but there's something that usually gets people to want to keep waking up and keep going and keep figuring this thing out and the mission and the values. So for you in O2X, what are the things that continue to get you excited to keep showing up and building it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, clearly, like to see the impact, like you see, like one light bulb. Teachers talk about one light bulb going on, and like I mean, we just at headquarters here, it's just it's like a fire hose of like. I mean, there's stories that don't work out, but there's a fire hose of just like good. I mean, we share them. We share them with you guys. We share them with specialists. We say like look what you guys did. Like this is powerful. This is so impactful. Like what you did, and you're having an impact in like every single group that you're working with, and then you like peel behind the curtain, and things come up, and just recently, we started working with, this is a little bit unique that we're working with US figure skating, but we're using, obviously they had the plane crash, and we're doing a lot of work with resilience and an intersection of that, and like what we can do to kind of help. There's parents that need to communicate and talk with their children. There's coaches, like there's just, it's heavy, and it's and even the athletes too, just to be able to feel it. And every time we talk to a different group, like US Olympics or figure skating, it's not like they clearly know about like strength and conditioning. They clearly know about training. They clearly know about nutrition. I mean, there's different levels of it, but to be able to like kind of talk to organizations like that and be like, what can we do to help? And then like really like drive in and like an impact. And it's like a completely new group, and it's fascinating. We take all the experience we have with this with the 40,000 people that go before them, and like be able to like package it up in different ways and like hear from them, and like learning, talking about it, learning a new sport. So it's like, if you're excited about learning and continue to learning and continue to be adaptive, like that to me, well, for one, that's entrepreneurship in itself, but we just like not sit still with it. Like, what can we do to innovate and drive and change? And then, just the excitement behind who we work with. It's, we do a lot of work in the government, but we're certainly not a government contract company that's just like, you know, just filling seams. Like it's a bigger mission for us.
Yeah, impact. And then I can see the excitement on your face when it comes to problem solving and being innovative and being creative and figuring out new and unique solutions that fit customers that you maybe currently have or don't even have yet. Is that what continues to get you excited beyond the impact of that creation and that innovation and just trying to be unique? Is that a skill set that you feel like you've got as, one of the founders of the company?
Yeah, I think I'm more of the that so in some ways maybe, but I think there's definitely more creative people, in the space that are not like at O2X, I like that are always thinking. Like I said, I'm more of like the process thinking, like the discipline process and like business processes, systems and scale, and thinking how to package that together, like and to be able to piece the puzzles. I do like that. I do like problem solving, but a different type of problem solving. I do like the learning new groups, and I learning the demographics and where we can kind of drive impact. So that motivates me. And now, I think we're big enough that we have like really creative, powerful people on our education team. People that are way more talented and smarter than I am, and be able to put these, things together. At the cultural side, it definitely is something that we have a knack for, though, like understanding the culture and then be able to fit it, because you can find educators everywhere that can create, but to implement it, with a cultural competence, it's going to land different. It's a different game. So I think that's where I sit. I like to, understand like just that read what's going to work and what's not, and then what's the best way to implement.
Yeah, I see it as the catalyst of being able to build relationships with so many different industries and then figuring out how do I put the pieces together of the right specialists with the right education team, with the right, business development team to make it all come together so that way we can deliver the training and create impact where maybe there wasn't that opportunity in the past. So over 12 years of entrepreneurship compared to, Navy SEAL training and work, which one has proven to be the bigger challenge of the two? I think that would be fascinating to look at that.
Different, way different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to compare the two. I would say if you asked like myself and Paul, who's in Gabriel, who are also former SEALs and things like that, I think they would say in some ways entrepreneurship is way harder. But it's a different art. You're creating something from scratch. It's incredibly rewarding, and I think the military has like a lot of pipelines and processes and things like familiarity of that. But the special operation committee was great at, you go to places that no one's gone, no one's been there before. You have to build infrastructure sometimes, but and you're charting new paths, you're kicking over stones, you're seeing further faster. I think those skills give a lot of skills that are transferred to business ownership, entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I can certainly see that as some of the skills you've highlighted from even being young, of putting yourself in challenging situations, proving that you can do some hard things, proving that you've got the competence to work through those, led to, the Merchant Marine Academy, led to Navy SEAL, led to entrepreneurship, leads to what continues to come forward. So it's exciting to see how some of those skills that maybe you didn't realize early on have invested over time, have really grown through and now allow you to push it with O2X. And so for folks out there who are interested in learning more about O2X or what you do or what you have to offer, what are some of the best ways for people to connect with you or the company?
So you like teed up the question that like my marketing team is probably like, you better not mess this up. Yeah. So obviously our website, O2X.com. We're on every social channel at O2X Human Performance on, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else is out there, Twitter, or X, and then also podcasts like Joe McCullough does an incredible job with the podcast. So it's a great way to kind of hear about these different groups that we work with. And I think that's very interesting to kind of, there's incredible stories, incredible people. It kind of what motivates and inspires people, but also like hearing about these communities and the challenge that's there. They talk about innovation and what's next. It's like, you hear these challenges and there's not one solution for it. There's a lot that's needed and a lot that they're doing, and not many people know.
Yeah, it's awesome. O2X is one amazing company for helping people to get access to the education and the training to help them thrive and to put people first. So certainly check it out and see if it's right for your organization or for folks out there who love or have a specialty in a specific area of human performance, who want to make an impact on other people's lives. There's usually opportunities that present themselves as well to get connected with the company. So Adam, one, I want to say thanks so much for taking some time. It's been great to get to know you and appreciate the opportunity to help out and support O2X whenever possible. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you continue to do with the company and the community and how you can continue to make an impact on people's lives.
You're the man. We really appreciate you, being a part of it, and I appreciate you having me on.